If you're listening, it's possible that you could be one of the older Americans, 65 or older, who refinanced your mortgage at the time when rates were at a historical low back in 2021. And if you were, then you might be concerned that you may or may not be able to maintain the mortgage payments after you retire. Lucy and Mark in Canton submitted a question saying they're getting close to their retirement years and trying to decide if paying off our mortgage might be best in order to retire debt-free. Do you have any advice? My advice for you today is, I'm going to give you a very specific answer, is it depends. And I think I like the idea of someone retiring debt-free, not having any mortgage debt. I think that gives you a feeling of security. I think it gives you a feeling of power. I know that's something that was an important goal of my mother's, but it doesn't necessarily mean that it's always the right thing to do. You know, so many older adults, 65 or older, have mortgages now. It's a significant higher number than it was in the past. In 2022, researchers found that just over 40% of homeowners older than 64 had a mortgage. So more older Americans have mortgage debt, and it's not necessarily a problem. Conventional wisdom, as I've always heard, says that you shouldn't retire with debt at all, especially not debt as large as a significant sum of a mortgage. And they say if you have a mortgage, it's financially dicey at best, and you know, in times of decreasing property values or some other stress, it could be financially ruinous. For a growing number of older Americans, signing up for a mortgage that is likely to outlive them really can make good economic sense. A significant percentage of homeowners have fixed-rate mortgages with historically low rates. Roughly 6 of 10 mortgage borrowers in the third quarter of last year held loans with interest rates of less than 4%. Nearly a quarter had rates that were less than 3%. You know, a recent campaign over the last few years by the Federal Reserve, which was intended to increase rates, tamp down inflation, has driven the yields that investors can get on ultra-safe investments like certificates of deposit to 5% or higher. Even people who have spent years and years saving money with the specific intention of paying off their mortgage with a lump sum at retirement, they're finding themselves recalculating that. Some are determining that those funds will be better deployed by earning returns on other investments or helping them meet their cash flow needs for everyday expenses. A number of financial advisors and retirement planners argue that it's imperative to pay off mortgage, but that's really, I think it's kind of outdated in today's world. While paying off a debt feels like a conservative, secure move, trading your liquidity for a paid-off mortgage is quite risky. Sometimes you just need some money. If ultimately your mortgage is at a significant cost in your retirement years and you don't have interest income to offset it, it might make sense to pay it off. But if you can earn a return that is somewhat close to, or in some cases more, than the interest rate you have on your mortgage today, then you might be better off to keep the mortgage in place. The reality is also, too, with the recent run-up in home prices, and even if home prices only continue to appreciate at 4 or 5%, you know, you've got a $500,000 home that has a $300,000 mortgage. The $300,000 mortgage has a 4% rate, so you're paying $12,000 a year in interest, but the house is appreciating in probably 5% increments, which is more like $20,000. So your equity is growing at $20,000 while your interest expenses are staying around $12,000. And I know I'm just generalizing, but sometimes it makes sense to keep the financing in place. And in some cases, I know when people retire, they intend to remain employed until they're able to draw Social Security or even later. But research indicates that only about half of American workers remain employed throughout their 50s. This suggests that income-reducing event is more common than many people expect. So, should you pay it off? I probably would if I was going into retirement years, but does that make it right for everybody? Nope. Everybody's got a different scenario, and a solution is different for them.